Elena Vasquez arrived at work the same way she always did, 11 minutes early. Coffee from the machine down the hall. Not because it was good, it wasn't, but because the walk gave her a moment before the floor took everything she had. She had done this for 14 years. The walk, the bad coffee, the moment. She did not know that morning would be the last time. Clive Hartwell's assistant called her name at 7:09 a.m. Conference room B. Elena set her cup on the nurse's station counter and followed without asking why. She already had a feeling, the way you sometimes do when a room changes temperature before anyone opens a window. Hartwell sat across the table with a folder in front of him. The folder had a plastic tab. The tab said, "Performance Concerns." She had worked in this hospital for 14 years, and she had never once been in this room for anything good. He spoke for several minutes. She listened. He used words like liability and resource allocation and pattern of incidents. There had been one complaint, one family, one difficult night, one miscommunication about medication timing that had already been reviewed and cleared 3 months ago. He called it a pattern. She noticed a water stain on the ceiling tile above his left shoulder. It looked, if you tilted your head, like the state of Nebraska. She did not argue. There was no point arguing with a folder. She cleaned out her locker in 11 minutes. She counted, because counting helped. It was something she had learned to do when the other feeling, the heavy, wordless one, started moving up through her chest. You count. You focus on the number. You keep moving. 14 years of small things fit into one canvas bag. She walked to her car, got in, put the bag on the passenger seat. She did not start the engine. Outside, the neighbor's sprinklers had been broken for 3 weeks. They sprayed sideways now, missing the grass entirely, watering only the driveway. She watched them for a long time. 4 years earlier, on a Tuesday night at 2 a.m., a man named Marcus Teal had come through the emergency room doors, certain he was dying. His chest was tight, his arms felt strange. He was sweating through his shirt, and his heart was doing something that felt wrong, that felt like a countdown. He was 34 years old, and he had survived 2 deployments and a roadside explosion that had taken 2 people he loved, and now, apparently, he was going to die in a hospital waiting room in the city where he had grown up. The attending on duty had run the standard checks. Heart rate elevated, but not dangerously. Blood pressure manageable. No cardiac event. The clinical conclusion, panic attack. The clinical approach, a pamphlet and a referral. Elena had been the nurse assigned to his room that night. She had read his chart before she walked in. She had noticed the dates, the deployments, the gap between when he came home and when he had last seen a doctor, which was a gap of 4 years, which told her something about how he had been living. She did not say "you're fine." She did not say "it's just anxiety" the way people said "just," as though the word made things smaller. She pulled a chair from the corner of the room. She did not sit across from him. She sat next to him, which was a small thing, and also not a small thing at all. She said, "Tell me what happened right before." That was it. That was the beginning of everything. He talked for 40 minutes. She listened in a way that people rarely listen, which is without waiting for her turn to speak. By the end, he was not calm exactly, but he was different, less alone inside it. He went home. He came back the following month for a routine check. She remembered his name. He did not expect that. Word moved through the Thursday group the way water moves through dry ground, quietly, completely, leaving no surface evidence of how far it had gone. The Thursday group was a loose gathering of veterans who met for peer support through the local VA program. They were not a club. They did not have a name for themselves. They simply knew each other the way people know each other when they have shared the kind of experiences that cannot be explained to anyone who wasn't there. One by one, over 4 years, they found their way to Mercy General. Not always for serious things, sometimes for the ordinary business of aging bodies and appointments, but enough of them, at enough of the difficult moments, had ended up in Elena's care. She never treated them like a category. That was the thing they all kept coming back to, in different words, with the same meaning. She treated them like people who had specific histories, and specific fears, and specific reasons for being guarded, and she worked around those reasons without ever making them feel like a problem to be managed. She did not know she had become, for 24 men, something close to a fixed point. Marcus heard the news at 8:47 in the morning from his cousin who worked in hospital admissions and who called because she thought he should know. He set his coffee cup down on the kitchen table. He did not pick it back up. He opened the group text that he and some of the others used for ordinary things: game scores, meet-up times, the small traffic of keeping in touch. He typed 3 words: "They fired Elena." The thread went quiet for 11 minutes. Then the responses started coming. Short ones, the kind of messages that are not really about words. By 9:15 there was a plan. It was not an angry plan. Anger would have been easier, in some ways, and also less effective. It was a specific plan, which is what you get when 24 people who have spent years learning to solve problems under pressure decide that something is wrong and needs to be fixed. They did not arrive together. This was deliberate. Between 9:40 and 10:20, they came through the main entrance of Mercy General, 1 or 2 at a time, the way people arrive when they have appointments, or when they are visiting someone, or when they simply have reason to be there, which they did. No signs. No raised voices. No performance of any kind. They found seats in the main lobby. Some stood near the windows. 2 of the older men sat because their knees had opinions about standing, and one had a cane, and none of them made anything of it. They were simply present. 24 men in a hospital lobby on a Wednesday morning, which under ordinary circumstances would not mean anything at all. It took the front desk receptionist 20 minutes to understand that they were not individually waiting for different things. They were collectively waiting for one thing. She called Hartwell's office. Then she called again. Then a third time. He came down at 10:23. He saw them, and used the word situation, without appearing to notice that he had said it out loud. Marcus Teal was not the leader. There was no leader. But he was standing closest, so Hartwell looked at him. Marcus said they were not a situation. They were patients of this hospital. They would like to speak with someone in administration about a staffing decision made that morning. Hartwell looked at the 24 men. He said he could arrange something. They went up in pairs, because that was what Hartwell requested, and because they were reasonable people who understood that reasonable requests should be accommodated. They sat in his office and they spoke. They did not perform their pain for him. This was the most important thing about what they did, and the thing that made it impossible to dismiss. They did not cry. They did not raise their voices. They did not describe their worst moments in detail, designed to make a person feel guilty. They were precise. Marcus described the night he had come in at 2 a.m., the specific things Elena had done, the chair she had moved, the question she had asked. The way the following months had been different, because of a single conversation that had taken 40 minutes of her time, and had cost her nothing visible, but that had changed something in him that he had not been able to change on his own. A man named Daniel spoke about the appointment where his hands would not stop shaking. He had been too ashamed to say anything. Elena had adjusted the blood pressure cuff herself, without a word, for 3 visits in a row, until the day he finally found the words to explain. She had already known. She had simply waited. A man named Ray described a night 2 years ago when he had come to the emergency room without a clear reason, which was the most terrifying way to arrive at a hospital because it meant something was happening that he could not name. Elena had been the one to sit with him while the unnamed thing slowly took a shape he could look at without looking away. He was here now. He was okay. He used both of those facts simply, without decoration. One by one. Hartwell sat with his folder on the desk in front of him. He did not open it. Elena's phone had been going off since 9:30. She had read some of the messages. She had stopped reading after Marcus's, which said, "We're at the hospital. You don't have to do anything. We just wanted you to know someone noticed." She sat in the car for a long time after that. The sprinklers in the neighbor's yard were still going sideways, still watering nothing useful. She had looked at them so long they had started to feel like a joke she was on the inside of. Someone noticed. She was not a person who cried easily. This was not strength, exactly. It was more like a habit she had built over a long time of being the person in the room who needed to stay functional while other people were falling apart. You learn to set things aside. You learn to count. You learn to keep moving. She could not keep moving right now. There was nowhere to move. So she sat, and in that sitting, In the car in the driveway, watching the broken sprinklers water the concrete while the phone went quiet for a moment, she rested in a way that she had not rested in 4 years. Hartwell made 3 phone calls after the last pair of men left his office, his supervisor, the legal department, human resources. The process that had taken months to build took less than 2 hours to reverse. He sent an email to Elena at 12:41 p.m. It was written in the language of administration, which is a language designed to say things without quite saying them. He used the word reinstatement and the word clarification, and he used them in a way that did not include the words, "we were wrong," but pointed in the same direction. She did not read it until later. She was already back in her car. She walked through the main entrance at 2:09 p.m. Same badge. Same hallway. The coffee machine by the elevator made its usual sound, which had always reminded her of someone clearing their throat before saying something they would rather not say. Most of the Thursday group had gone by then. They had jobs and obligations and the ordinary requirements of lives being lived. They were not men who waited around for acknowledgement. The doing had been the thing. But Marcus was still there, sitting in one of the chairs along the lobby wall. He was not on his phone. He was simply sitting, which was something he had not been able to do, to simply sit in a waiting room without every muscle in his body preparing for something, 4 years ago. He stood when he saw her come through the doors. She looked at him. He looked at her. She nodded. He nodded. That was the entire conversation. Neither of them needed more than that. Some things between people do not require sentences. She walked to the elevator and pressed the button for the 4th floor. The doors opened. She stepped in. The doors closed. Seton. On the 4th floor, in a plastic chair along the east wall, a young man sat with his back to the room. He was 22 years old. He had no appointment. He had come in the way some people come in, not entirely sure why, not entirely sure what to ask for, which is the most frightening way to need help, because it means you cannot explain what is wrong. He had chosen the only empty seat left in the waiting area, which happened to face the wall. He was looking at the wall. His hands were still. Elena set her bag down at the nurse's station. She looked across the room. She saw the chair. She saw the wall. She saw the set of his shoulders, which were doing the thing shoulders do when a person is trying very hard to take up as little space as possible. She picked up the chair nearest the station. She carried it across the room. She did not sit across from him. She sat next to him. He turned his head, slightly, not quite looking at her, waiting, maybe, for whatever came next. The form, the question about insurance, the clipboard. She said, "Tell me what happened right before." He was quiet for a moment. Then he started to talk.